Welcome, everyone. I also, as Karen mentioned, Council President Elaine Clegg is with us, as is Council President Pro Tem Holly Woodings and Doug Holloway, the Director of Parks. I have a couple things I'd like to say, and then Council President Clegg will also have some remarks, and Doug's here for questions. But to start out with, I want to say that as you heard today from the governor, he's issued a stay healthy order. And the state will be moving into stage 1 of our recovery planning. And this is based on his review of the science and where we are at as a state with regard to COVID. And we as a city will also be moving into stage 1. The couple things I want to talk about, though, related to that, first off, is that I want to thank our citizens, our residents, the businesses of this community, civic leaders, service providers, everyone who since early and middle March have stepped up, sought ways to help members of their community, known that they were taking steps willingly in partnership with us as a city that would hurt them financially by staying home. But we've all made sacrifices and done it because we understand the importance of protecting our community, especially the most vulnerable and our frontline folks that take care of us every day. And the good news is those tough steps and changes to your lives that you were willing to make, whether it be now having kids at home both every day of the week and helping them learn remotely, whether it be that you're calling in and looking for unemployment benefits because the business you work at shut down, or you're juggling, trying to work and support a team of people remotely in ways that we've never had to do before. All of those steps that were taken by each of you are incredibly difficult, but they yielded the results that we needed to see. And we are blessed here in this city and in this state to have not experienced the level of impact that COVID has brought to other communities because we took action early and we took action together. And as we move into stage 1, it is so important that we not move so quickly that we lose the impact that the sacrifices we've made for the last month and a half have brought to our community. And it's with the health and safety of our employees and our residents, and my belief that when we protect our health and we make tough decisions, but sound decisions related to the science of this virus and our need to get back to work, we'll be all the better for it. And so the governor's order today is a good one. In our city where we have more people, where we have an airport, where we have a different set of needs, expectations, and density, there are a couple things related to his order that we want to, as a mayor today and then council on Tuesday, bring into a public health order for May in our community. And that will include requiring physical distancing of 6 feet for the next 30 days. As we've been doing, when you are out and about, when you return to work, if you decide to open your business to your employees and to the public, we must follow physical distancing protocols. At the airport, we will continue to have requirements that fewer people be in there. You're in the airport if you're leaving or arriving. If you need to, for various reasons, accompany someone who is leaving or arriving, but we're asking others to stay out of the building while you wait to pick up your loved ones. And then finally, during stage 1, we'll have no groups in accordance with the governor's recommendations, but we believe it's important to require that here. So those signed an order today related to physical distancing to keep our community safe as we head back to work. And then I also signed an order that enables commission meetings to begin to happen in May. And so you'll see planning and zoning and design review and other commissions start to hold public gatherings through Zoom or other technology online that people can attend by joining through the live link, so that we can pick up on the business that's been waiting and move things through this community that need to move through the community so we can get our people back to work. We will also be reopening in stage 1 some city operations. So internally, if you'll remember when we closed the doors of City Hall to the public, we also developed for our employees pandemic leave policies and telework policies. Working with the council, we will do the same as we phase through the return of employees to work. And I've talked to quite a few leaders of companies in the city this week, and they're doing the same, recognizing that where we can, we should allow people to continue working from home because it will minimize the case of outbreak if the virus begins to move through the community again. So we will institute telework policies. We will be bringing people back into the workplace slowly, and employees that do return to our facilities will be required to answer some checklist questions and also to wear masks. We will be developing those policies in addition so that there are fewer people in the offices than we've had in the past. All of the return to work protocols and policies that we will be focusing on to take care of our own employees in the City of Boise government will be made publicly available online so that other businesses can see what we're doing and so that the public understands the steps that we're taking. And then so many of you interact with us in our facilities, whether it be at City Hall West, or in some of our, hello Arthur, some of our recreational facilities. So we will first and foremost focus on opening facilities to undertake maintenance and operations that are critical. We will be doing more maintenance on golf courses and other places that all of you are so anxious to get back to enjoying. We will be opening recycling and compost facilities that many of you have asked about in phase 1. And then we will also be opening with restrictions around golf courses, the Warm Springs Golf Course, and the first wave at the Whitewater Park. In phase 2, we will be offering new options at the library, recognizing that access to technology is important. And we want to come up with ways to make it possible for the public to access technology that will help you find that job, file an employment request, et cetera, in safe ways. And so we're working through that. We will be reopening the Boise Depot for reservations for small groups, less than 10, and dog parks, and we'll expand the openings at golf courses as well as the bike park and Whitewater Park. I say all this though, and those are the first 2 phases. At stage 3, we'll have more things that we open, stage 4 even more. But every time we move from one stage to another, we will be focused on the data that Central District Health and the state is able to provide us to make sure that what's happening in this community is in line with what we need to see happen from a slow spread of the virus in terms of moving to the next step. Because in all of this, as I said at the beginning, it's so important if we want to get back to work, we want to be able to reopen our establishments and rehire the employees that need so badly to get back to work. We've got to take smart steps in a slow fashion so that we can be sure that when we, or as sure as possible in the case of this virus, that the steps that we're taking are iterative enough that if we see that something is happening that ought not be happening with regard to the virus in our community, we can unwind. But I think it's also so important that we take precautionary steps so that we don't get to that point. And so that is our goal, is that we reopen businesses, we reopen our city facilities, we welcome the public back into our buildings and our employees back in here in safe and effective manners to be able to provide the services that all of you rely on, while also making sure that we're protecting the health of the public, which will protect our economy in the long run, as we've done from the very early stages of our work here as a council and mayor at the City of Boise and with our employees from March onward. And so with that, I believe the council president has a couple things to say, and then we are happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this today. The City Council has been getting regular briefings from the Mayor's office and other staff in the city, and through those briefings have come to both understand and support the plans and the strategies that the city's undertaken, and certainly support the reopening strategies that you heard today. We've discussed as a council this approach to a measured and thoughtful opening. It's focusing on safety, and we appreciate that the city team with Mayor McLean's leadership has been able to focus so hard on making sure that as we move forward with this, we are all safe, and we support that effort. The mayor and I were on a phone call earlier today, and one of the things that one of the speakers said struck me. He said, every day that we can slow this virus down, every day that we can make sure that fewer people get it, fewer people get close to it, is another day that we can develop strategies and therapies and work toward a vaccine, get more PPE on hand, and be more ready to deal with whatever the effects of it are going forward. So we so appreciate and applaud you, the community, for embracing the measures that we've taken, that the state's taken. And with your help, we've seen that these are working. The data is showing that we are slowing it down. We are buying ourselves that time we need so that we can get to a place at some point in the future where we'll be beyond this. So by banding together with the city, you, our citizens, our businesses, as the mayor referenced, our nonprofits, all of you have done a great job in protecting not just yourselves, but the entire community, and often at great cost to yourselves. And we so appreciate that, and we recognize it. And we especially know that that work has protected those that are most vulnerable in our community, those who are least able to help themselves. And it hasn't gone unnoticed. We're really thankful for you for that. The City Council looks forward to continuing to work with the Mayor's office and the staff that is worked so hard and so diligently at the city to monitor progress as we go forward. Hopefully we won't get to a point where we have to move back. With your help, we think we won't have to do that. We sure hope not to, because we want to allow our city to move into recovery and resilience. And we want to do it in the way that Boise always does, which is being the best we can given the challenge at hand. You've done that so far. We don't have any doubt that you'll continue to do it going forward. And we thank you for continuing to help us, help all of you in getting past this very difficult time. Thanks again.
Karen, you're muted.
Matt, do you want to take questions as they come into chat for either the mayor or Council President Clegg?
Yeah, I can watch the chat.
Thank you.
All of the materials, I see there's a question from Margaret, but all the materials with regard to what will open and when, regarding stages for city facilities will be available on our website at cityboise.org/COVID-19, the website we send everyone to now, as well as the materials that look at how we will be instituting safe business practices in our own buildings for anyone that might want to understand before you visit one of our facilities or as you're looking at your own plans.
Madam Mayor, before we start the questions, I forgot to recognize Councilmember Pro Tem Holly Woodings, who's also on the call. I know if any of you have questions that I think she is as qualified or more qualified to answer than I'll be sure to shoot them her way. So don't be shy in asking those questions. Thanks.
So I'm not sure who's doing this, so I'll just jump in. I see that both Margaret and Haley have questions. Margaret, Carmel.
Yeah, thanks. So I wanted to ask about the courthouse. So I know you don't have direct control over, that's the Ada County Courthouse, but they're reopening and there's 35 people set to be evicted next week. Do you have a comment on that, especially since you were kind of reluctant to invoke some of those police powers related to eviction proceedings?
Sure. This is, as you rightly pointed out, Margaret, the county and the courthouse decide when they are opening and the volume of business that they decide to take up. I continue to believe that the state that could take the steps to protect renters from eviction without invoking police powers is the proper way to go about this. But believe now that the court is opening, that it becomes even more important that our city and legal department work with the county and their legal department and the courts to determine whether or not there's an appropriate path forward. We always have supported and will continue to support Jesse Tree. And I would encourage anyone that finds themselves in this situation to reach out to Jesse Tree, but also to the eviction clinic at the law school, because there are attorneys that are ready to represent the public, and that representation has an incredible impact on the outcome of a case when it comes to eviction cases.
Thank you.
Haley Harding.
Howdy. So I'm looking at enforcement it's been more focused on education repeatedly throughout this thing. We've talked a lot about education. Is there plans to enforce in a different way these new stages as they come up? Like specifically what I'm thinking of is in outdoor spaces where I'm not quite sure who at this point, but someone posted pictures of like Quinn's Pond and Esther Simpot Park, where there are tons of people, most of whom are not wearing masks, and there's seemingly no like actual enforcement other than just education. Is that going to change at all?
We discussed Simplot Park and the ponds yesterday, actually, because we did hear about that. And Doug Holloway might have something to add with regard to how we are looking at that park in particular as it gets warm. I'm going to say that where we have teeth in terms of providing permits, allowing people in groups to use the parks, we will not be allowing that to happen. We will continue to educate as much as we can. And just as we know that our community has been blessed with a lower rate of infection and we've avoided the problems of surge that we've seen in other communities, we know it's because there were residents that took seriously the steps that we took and the requests that we made. And now as we open more, it is incumbent on the residents of this city to take seriously the requests that we're asking, because there will be more activity, more people connecting with each other in places of employment. And the last thing any of us really want, if we want to get back to work, is to have an outbreak occur. And we as a state and as a city have always looked at the individual responsibility and that rugged individualism that makes us unique as a country and even more unique as a state. Well, we as individuals have to recognize that with that comes a responsibility if we want to be able, from a healthy perspective, to take advantage of the freedoms that we have and the new allowances that we as a city and state are making while we are waiting for a vaccine. And if people disregard that, we see that there's an outbreak and the data looks differently, we will, without hesitancy, pull back what is allowed to happen. So we are relying on citizens to continue to take this seriously, and any steps that we can take, first to educate, but then if push comes to shove and we have to take further steps, that we will.
So you're saying there might be a actual like
if we cannot get to a point in this community where people are following the rules that we've set out with the new opportunities to be back in community that they now have, and we see that cases go up, we will pull back. And Doug, do you want to jump in on that park in particular? in some of the, I mean, we're going to continue as you pointed out, Haley, with education first, because with those tickets come the need to be present in court, which creates more exposure. And so it really, there's a systems impact to all the steps that we take. So first and foremost, our residents have got to recognize that if you're out in public, please wear a mask. If you are at a place that's too full and too packed, disperse and go somewhere else. And parents, I know it's been hard with teens and college kids to keep them away from each other, but the more we're out and about, the more likely it is that we will see a spike in infections. And so the more each of us can do to own the responsibility that comes with our individualism, the more likely it is that we will move forward and meet our goals of recovering our economy and getting back to work. And Doug, do you have anything specific to the occurrence yesterday at the park and what we might be thinking about doing with that park in particular as it gets warm?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And just playing upon what the mayor has said already, education obviously is going to continue to be our first line of defense. We actually have instituted a program at Road Skate Park with a ranger that we have hired that basically has helped us keep some semblance of activity at Road Skate Park. So we're going to implement that same process at Quinn's Pond beginning immediately. And we're going to be utilizing 2 different rangers, and their primary responsibility is just to, again, remind folks that safe social distancing is required, and that also that masks are recommended, and that we're just asking folks to adhere to the rules of the park. So it's just not that distancing. There are a number of other things that we have concerns with alcohol related type of activities and some things along those lines with dogs and other activities that we just need to really stay on top of. I think we had an interesting day yesterday where the temperature did get up into the 80s. And so we've got a cool trend happening now over the next few weeks. And so we're going to use that time, Haley, to be able to do some more of that education. We've working with our bike patrol and Chief Weininger on beefing up some more of the patrols at that park as well. So we really think that in a soft way, we can accomplish a lot of what we need to accomplish. But if we can't, I think the mayor's made it very clear. The last thing we want to do, but we could do it, is close the beach areas at those two locations. And I think that would really be unfortunate and sad, because there's plenty of room around Quinn's Pond, the Greenbelt, the Whitewater Park. You have Veterans Park and Veterans Park Pond. There is so much space in that area that there really is not a need that we have that kind of congregation on the beaches. So we're really going to use that education piece first and foremost, and hopefully that will work for us when the weather gets warmer.
Thank you.
I see Sasha had a follow-up on that particular question, so I'll jump to, is it Sasha Woodruff?
Yeah, it is. And apparently my video is not working. So apologies for that.
You blipped in for a second.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there you are again.
Oh, hello. So we just got a press release that there is a planned rally, an open for business rally on Saturday. And I realize at the Capitol, and I realize that is state territory, but it sounds like they're planning to have vendors there. And how are you going to react to enforcing a rally like that?
Sure, I'll need to get more details on that because this is news to me. I'll point to what we did in the past, which was that when there were rallies announced at the State House, the state and Idaho State Police are primary, and then the Boise City Police have been secondary in those situations. But I'm going to need to look into it and talk to the department rather than give an answer right now.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Don Day.
Hi there. So I've had some folks tell me that there have been some tents popping back up at Cooper Court near downtown Boise. Are you aware of this, and what is the city doing in that area?
Sure. The police have been in and out of Cooper Court in the last month, honestly, talking with folks there and helping them connect with the services they need to move into the shelter because there's space at Interfaith, because we've moved families and others to private rooms. And addressing encampments requires a holistic and systemic approach to housing and homelessness. So you can do something in the morning or in the evening when you see tents, but unless we do more, which is what I'm going to talk to you about, that'll continue to be an issue. So our city staff is working closely with the shelters to determine the needs of folks that are experiencing homelessness to get them into shelters. We recognize that there could well be federal funds that will help us during this difficult time address vulnerable populations, and we want to be ready to deploy those resources to support those experiencing homelessness. Catch is sending street teams out and connecting with people experiencing homelessness to make sure that they have access to the healthcare needs that they have, again, with the intent of getting them housed as quickly as possible. And then, of course, we've developed the program where we've helped put families in conjunction with the county, families and medically fragile into hotel rooms so that we have more beds if necessary. Because we all know that encampments are never safe, but particularly around this virus, this is a vulnerable population. And so we're taking as many steps as we can to prevent them from starting. And when they do, to work with the people individually to determine how we can help them move into shelter to stay safe and stay healthy. You're muted.
Sorry. Can you explain what's different this time? You were obviously council president, I think, the last time the Cooper Court issue flared up. Can you kind of explain what the approach will be different this time than under sort of a previous administration?
So I wasn't council president, and I was relatively new in my tenure as a council person. Elaine, the council president, probably has more background on the steps that were taken then. So the big step is that we are making sure that we don't get to that point. We are preventing the encampment from getting to the point that it got to back in, when was that, 2012-ish?
14, right?
2014.
Yeah.
And so the funding, the street teams that exist now, the street outreach through Catch is new. We've provided a grant for rapid rehousing through Catch. Those street teams can get people into houses. There's a grant from the city. The partnerships with the shelters are different than they were at that time. I mean, many steps were taken before my tenure as mayor. And then, of course, now as mayor, with the grants to Catch and the focus on prevention through provision of services, we're going to make sure that Cooper Court doesn't get to the point where it got before.
And I would address that briefly. You know, that Cooper Court got to the point it was before was a lot of different issues involved, but primarily not really having the community support to close it down early. And from the time that happened until now, a lot of work has been done, as the mayor referenced, to put in place both the systems and the support, and to do the communication to get the community buy-in and support to deal with these issues differently. Dealing with Cooper Court was not ever fun. I applaud the mayor's approach now to not letting it grow. It isn't a safe environment for anyone. It's even less safe now. And we do have more resources now to help those folks who are very vulnerable and who need that help. And as city council president, and as I've spoken to the city council, there's a lot of support to do what we need to make sure that that doesn't reemerge.
Thank you.
Madeline White. Madeline, I think it's what you, oh no, your question's been answered.
Yeah, it's been answered. Thank you.
Okay. Sasha, is that follow up to Haley's question, or was that the one you already asked? Oh no, you already asked me about the event. Haley has another question.
Okay. So the city has apparently told youth sports organizations that they cannot use the Simplot complex through at least May. And I'm just wondering what led to that decision specifically.
Sure, and Doug can go into more background because it's the parks in general. We are saying that in May there shouldn't be group gatherings and that you need to follow social distancing protocols. And so we are not going to permit activities where you can't meet both of those requirements in our facilities. Doug?
Yeah, Mayor, you hit it on the head. Basically, with the safe physical distancing, there is just no way you can conduct a soccer practice. We did cancel all of our youth summer leagues at Idaho Ice World, our youth hockey leagues. And again, for the same reason, it's not compatible to be able or practical to be able to have a hockey season when there is no ability to have that safe physical distancing. We also can't control what happens in the locker rooms at Ice World and some things like that. So that really is just continuing on with what we're doing in our park locations. So I do applaud the mayor in her taking a stance on that at this point in time. And I guess we'll see what happens in the future. But at this point in time, it just isn't safe or practical to do that.
And I should say that Doug speaks with authority when it comes to soccer because he was a soccer coach for many years, including my daughter's soccer coach when she was in middle school and junior high and early high school. So I recognize that people want to get back to the activities that they love. And I also recognize that we have to take a measured approach to this if we want to continue to allow people to get back to work. And I believe that our first priority is to protect our public health. And our second priority, and really tied with that, is to get everyone back to work. And so as we prioritize the steps that we take and what we open and what we allow, it will be in balancing the importance of our economy recovering, people having a paycheck again, with the imperative that we do everything we can to prevent a surge and protect public health.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we've got two more, and then it will be wrapping up. Let's see. Oh, Don has another one. Jeremy Stiles, KTVB.
All right. Yeah. This is the one thing I hadn't really heard addressed, but I think is people are starting to think about big events coming up in the fall. There's Boise State football and then Tree Forts in September. Is there anything, barring a surge that we don't expect, to where we might depart from the state's timetable, and that dramatically?
So where we would depart from the state's staging is if we saw in Boise specifically health data that was different from the state on average. And we do in our 4 stages, we look at group size, and that we haven't been able to specify yet because it's too soon to tell what the fall looks like. It's my sincerest hope that if we do everything well this summer, in the fall we'll be able to have larger gatherings, but we just don't know. Universities around this country are grappling with the very issue of college sports, as are entertainment venues and festivals and others. And so I imagine that all of us will be looking at the progress we make in the movement through these stages, the impact that the stages and the reopening has had, and then weigh what we can do in September and beyond. This virus has, taught us all that there's only so much we can know and plan for. And you hope for the events that are scheduled, but we all need to recognize that, things could change quickly, and we need to be ready to react at that point if necessary.
All right. Thank you.
Sasha.
Yeah, so contact tracing and testing are really important to start to figure out how this virus is spreading. Is LA, it sounds like they're going to be offering free testing. Is Boise going to be doing anything to bolster testing and contact tracing?
We're looking, every city has a different relationship to public health and public health departments. So I'm not sure what if LA oversees their public health or not. I only say that because we look to Central District Health as the public agency that is charged with tracing, is charged with testing, as well as, of course, other medical facilities. We have asked and really advocated for an increase in tracing capacity, both here locally as well as at the state level. And I'm pleased to see that the governor's using federal funding to build the tracing capacity at Central District Health. And they'll be able to provide more data on a regular basis with regard to who's been exposed, and there's probably more people than we realize, but also ultimately when testing expands, the extent of infection here. Both those data points are very, very important to really understand the spread of the disease and the impact of steps that we take to loosen as well as tighten when necessary. And then Don,
Mayor, if I could I?
Oh, sure, of course.
Just one thing the mayor did not mention is that the city has been working closely with Central District Health to ensure that if necessary, they have the capacity to deal with a surge. And we hope that's not necessary, but the city has been offering whatever support we can to Central District Health so that they do have the capacity they need.
Thank you.
And then Don Day.
How is the relationship and the flow of data going with Central District Health and the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare? I know you've had some significant frustrations in past weeks.
And there has been much progress made. The head of our innovation performance team, Kyle, who you've likely seen present at various council meetings, is working closely with Ada County's data person, the Central District Health, and I believe somebody in Health and Welfare to develop a data consortium here in the region, and then a dashboard that would be available to the public, as far as I understand. Because it's been important to us to have real data about this virus. And in the absence of data, we tend to make decisions that are more conservative in the direction of protecting public health. And as soon as we have that data, one, it'll tell us more about what's happening here locally. It'll be able to help predict what might happen with different policy changes that could be made. And I'm very optimistic and quite pleased that these organizations, all the data geeks in these organizations that are super smart, are now working together to develop a set of indicators that the public will be able to see. All right, with that, I will just, oh, Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to close out and let everybody know that I will be sending a press release with all this information and links to all of the city's phased plans. All the details will be there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all so much for coming. Again, I just want to thank the Council President and Council President Pro Tem for their work with City Council on the support of the actions we've taken, but importantly, the ideas that come forward from the City Council to be sure that we're taking the right steps to protect our employees, taking the right steps to protect the public, and seeking as much information as we have. They've been true partners. And then, of course, to the management team at the city, the department heads, that like Doug Holloway, who's here today, who are looking hard at how we can responsibly open facilities to serve our public. And also, while we've been closed, to repurpose our employees and give them opportunities to support the needs that we've had, to support the community as we've worked to prevent a surge of the virus. And then sometimes the hardest thing about this is that it's a battle against something that we can't see. And when states and cities and others take steps early, it makes it more likely that we will never see what could have been. And that makes it even harder in many ways as the days get longer and the work of staying home feels more tedious, to recognize that what you are doing has actually had an impact beyond what we can really explain. And the only way we can explain it is to point to communities that didn't have the blessing that we had of early action with the governor and cities throughout this region and protecting public health to stem the spread. And so as we move forward, it's going to feel harder and harder. And I just implore everyone to think about when you walk out of the house, like put on your mask. If we'll be asking you and requiring of you to do that when you come into City Hall, but I'm going to implore you to do it on your own. When you're at the grocery store, when you're at the parks, when you're on the trails, when you're walking through your neighborhood. Not because it'll protect you, but if you happen to be one of those asymptomatic carriers, it'll protect your neighbors and ultimately your community and help us ensure that we move from phase to phase. This is truly a partnership between people to get us back to where we were, to be able to recover, create opportunity, and ultimately, at some point in the future, come back in physical ways to these gatherings that we all miss so much. So please look online. You'll see the phases that we have. I thank you for all the sacrifices you've made and continue to be inspired and motivated by the steps that citizens have taken and business leaders have taken to protect their employees, to protect their neighbors and families. So thank you very much. And this will continue to be tough as we move through this, but I know that we can and we will. And at the end of the day, we'll all be better for it. So thanks today for everybody joining, and visit, Karen will get you the materials as we said, and please, for the public, you can continue to send emails to the info address. You can call the hotline or visit our website for more information on the openings and the phases that we'll have here at the City of Boise. Take care, everyone. Be well.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everyone for being here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.